Gallagher's Steakhouse has been opened since 1927 and is still considered one of the best steakhouses in Times Square, New York City. And just to show you that they're the real deal, there are hundreds and hundreds of dry-aged steaks when you go window shop, which is, by the way, fantastic advertisement for them. Although the place has obviously upgraded from its opening, it still has the same vibes as an old steakhouse with the waiters dressed up in fancy suits and ties. With this in mind, the surface was lovely. They struck great small talk and immediately tidy napkins when someone left for the bathroom. Gallagher's Steakhouse first gives you different types of complimentary bread, which I do have to say, it's pretty good for it being complimentary. I mean, the bread could have been a little bit warmer, but I'll take complimentary bread any day. And if you seem to follow me by this point, you probably can look at all the food that I've eaten in my New York trip and realize that my family and I aren't really that hungry to eat anything. So we decided just to skip the appetizers and go straight to eating the steaks, which is why you come to Gallagher's in the first place. We decided to order two types of steaks. There was a special order for a tomahawk steak for 2, and then we ordered a porterhouse steak for 3. And don't worry, vegans or vegetarians, we had sides of sauteed mushrooms, french fries, onion rings, and broccoli rabe. Of course, let's talk about this steak. It was a perfect medium rare as we requested. And the steaks tasted quite good. There was actually a nice beefy flavor towards it. It was decently juicy, seasoned well, and there was a good crust on those steaks. And each of the cuts of the steaks that we got actually tasted slightly different. The strip from the porterhouse had the best crust, but was probably the toughest one out of the bunch there. The sirloin from the porterhouse, however, was the absolute softest and the most tender out of all the cuts there. And I felt like their specialty tomahawk was just a good all-rounder. Although coming from a country that is more known for their beef, I would say that Gallagher's steak just doesn't taste as beefy as an Australian steak. But overall, it's probably one of the best that America can offer though. Gallagher's Steakhouse also has a signature sauce, which actually tasted really good. It was like fancy beef ketchup, if that's a thing. But in terms of the sides though, the fries were really crispy and salty. The onion rings were actually really sweet. And the greens and mushrooms had a ton of garlic on them, which makes me definitely eat them more than I usually do. And even though we technically ordered steaks for 5 people, and my family is a table of 5, we definitely ordered way too much because we didn't even come close to finishing any of them. But not finishing the main will never stop us from grabbing some desserts. If you haven't been to a steak place before, you really actually want to stay for the desserts because they're actually really good in steakhouses. And boy, they did not disappoint. Luckily, my family and I were smart enough to only order 3 desserts this time. We first had the key lime pie, which had a very strong cinnamon crust, and even though the coloring was not as strong as other key lime pies I've seen, which is probably because they didn't use food coloring, the key lime flavor was actually quite pleasant and not too strong, but it also still had that rich and creamy filling though. Next we had the creme brulee, which was actually the least sweetest. The caramelized sugar top was easy to break through, and the custard wasn't actually that rich, but it felt more liquidy than other creme brulees. Regardless, it was still quite smooth though, and still had a lot of vanilla in it. Finally, we had the chocolate cake. And it was a chocolate cake I expected to eat when I'm in America. It was a super rich milk chocolate delight, and both had just a standard vanilla ice cream and sweet American whipped cream on the side. Overall, I had a great time there, and now I can finally say that I've been to an American steakhouse. And although I will have to try other steakhouses in New York City, if the standard is like this, I can't wait to try some more.